If you want to install a clean version of Windows, meaning you want to remove all unnecessary applications that come pre-installed with the operating system, and at the same time customize Windows settings according to your needs before installing the operating system itself, here is a simple way to do it. First, visit the official Microsoft website to download the Windows 11 ISO file. When you open the site, the link will be in the video description, find the section titled Download Windows 11 Disk Image. Click on the drop-down menu below this text and select the option Windows 11 Multi-Edition ISO for 64 devices. Then, click the Download Now button. After that, you will have the option to choose a language. I will select English United States, but you can choose any language you prefer. Once you select your desired language, click the Confirm button to confirm your choice, and then when the site loads, click the 64-bit download button to start downloading the Windows 11 ISO file. Once the process is successfully completed, we will create a bootable USB using Rufus. After selecting the Windows 11 ISO file we previously downloaded and clicking the Start button, we will have the option to customize the Windows installation. If any of these options are checked, it is very important to uncheck them, as failing to do so will cause Rufus to create its own XML file. Since we will create another XML file through which we will customize Windows, there is no need to create two XML files. After unchecking all items, we will click the OK button, after which we will receive a warning that the USB will be formatted, meaning it will be completely erased. Click OK again to confirm, after which the creation of the boot USB drive will begin. Once the process is successfully completed, we will open a website that we will use to create the XML file for customizing Windows. When you visit the website, the link will be in the video description, you will first see a section related to the language settings. The first item relates to the language that will be used in Windows itself. I will leave it as English, but you can choose your preferred language. Below are settings related to the keyboard. English is selected by default, but you can change or add more languages so that after installing Windows, you have the option to choose from multiple keyboards. You can also select home location, which will automatically configure the currency, time formatting and similar settings. The next segment addresses the settings for the processor architecture, meaning you have the option to choose whether you want to install the 32-bit or 64-bit version based on the type of the processor you are using. I will leave the Intel AMD 64-bit option checked. Next, we have the option to disable the hardware requirements check for Windows 11, such as TPM, security boot and so on. If you want to install Windows 11 on an older computer that does not meet the technical requirements, be sure to check this option. Additionally, if the computer on which you plan to install Windows 11 does not have internet access, you can check the option Allow Windows 11 to be installed without an internet connection, which will enable you to install Windows without the internet. You have the option to assign a name to your computer. If you leave the first option checked, the computer will be given the name indicated at the end of the sentence. If you want to define your computer's name yourself, click the second option and enter your desired name. Next, we have the option to configure the space that Windows will occupy on the hard drive. If you have a smaller capacity hard drive, you can check the second option. Use Compact OS, which will compress system files to take up less space. If that is not the case, meaning you have enough space on the hard drive, you can leave the first option checked, which will allow for automatic selection during the Windows installation. Then we have the option to select the time zone. The first option, which is checked by default, will determine the time zone based on the language and the region we selected at the beginning. If you want to set this manually, click the second option and choose the time zone you want. The next option relates to how partitions will be formatted. The first option, which is checked, will perform an automatic selection during installation. If you prefer, you can manually set everything according to your needs by checking the second option and choosing between GPT and MBR options. In this segment, you can also specify whether you want a partition to be created for Windows recovery during installation. The next segment relates to selecting the version of Windows you want to install and activation. When you click on the drop-down menu in this segment, you have the option to choose the version of Windows that will be installed, whether you want the Pro, Home or another version that is on the list. If you have an activation key for Windows, you can also enter it in this segment to activate Windows during the installation process. If you do not have a key, you can skip this segment. Next, we have settings related to the user accounts. In this segment, you can add usernames if multiple people will be using the same computer, as well as set a display name, which is the name that will be shown for the user. You can also define the password for each user, as well as the permissions that the users will have, such as whether they will have administrative privileges or not. Windows 11 has a security setting that prompts you to change your password every 42 days. In this segment, you can disable this setting by leaving the first option checked, or you can select the third option and define how many days will pass before Windows notifies you to change your password. The next settings relate to the account lockout. This setting prevents so-called brute force attacks, where someone tries to guess your password by entering a large number of different options in a short period. As you can see, the default setting in the Windows 11 is that the system will lock after 10 incorrect attempts within 10 minutes, after which it will not be possible to enter the password for a period of 10 minutes. If you want to completely disable Windows locking, which is not recommended, check the second option. If you want to define the time and number of attempts yourself, check the third option and enter your desired settings. Next, we have settings related to the Windows Explorer. First, you have the option to set the visibility of files and folders. If you want to see system hidden files and folders, check the second option. If you want to see all files and folders in Windows, check the third option. If you want file extensions to be displayed in Windows Explorer, check the option Always Show File Extensions. This setting is recommended because viruses and malware often disguise themselves as legitimate files, such as PDF documents. For instance, if a file appears to be a PDF but has an extension typical for installation files, you can potentially avoid a scam and prevent the execution of malicious software. If you don't like how the right-click menu looks in Windows 11, check the option Use Classic Context right-click menu in Windows 11. And after installation, you will have the right-click menu as it was in Windows 10. Next, we can choose the appearance of the Start menu. As you can see, there are several options, so choose the one you like best. If you do not want Microsoft News and Weather to appear in Start menu, check the option Disable Widgets. Additionally, if you prefer the Start menu to be in the bottom left corner, as it was in Windows 10, rather than centered as it is now in Windows 11, check the option Left Align the Taskbar in Windows 11. In this segment, you can also disable Bing search in Windows. When you type a specific text, Windows 11 will show you internet results for the text. If you want to receive results only from your computer, disable Bing search. The next settings relates to the Windows as an operating system. Here, if you wish, you can disable Windows Defender, disable Windows Updates, Smart App Control, and other advanced system settings. In this segment, I will check only a few options that I consider desirable for most users. First, I will disable Windows from giving me app recommendations. Then, I will disable disk encryption using BitLocker. If you check this option but later change your mind, you can always activate BitLocker from within Windows after installation and encrypt the disk. I will also disable the automatic launch of the Edge web browser upon the first startup of Windows, as well as prevent Edge from running with the operating system and working in the background. I will check the option Make Edge Uninstallable, which allows for the complete removal of the Edge web browser after installing Windows, an option that many Windows users would like to have. In this segment, I will also check Delete Empty Windows Old folder. This folder is used to store data related to the previous version of the Windows you had if you performed an upgrade. Since I will be doing a clean installation, this folder is unnecessary for me, so I will disable its creation. Next, we have settings related to the visual effects, such as animations, shadows, fonts, and so on. Since these effects can slow down the system, I will choose the option that is best for the performance of the operating system itself, but of course you can select the option that suits you best. You have the option to choose which icons you want to have on the desktop. I will select the icons for this PC, user files, and recycle bin. In the next segment, you have the option to install applications for creating virtual machines. If you use virtualization, you can select one or more of these three provided options. Next, we have options related to the internet connectivity. The following segment, Express Settings, relates to the data that Windows sends to Microsoft. As indicated, if you value your privacy, leave the first option checked, which will disable the sending of your data. In the Personalization Settings segment, you have the option to choose a theme to be used, whether you want to use a light or dark theme for Windows and applications, select a color to be used in Windows, set a background, and more. The next segment will be one of the most important for most users, as it relates to the applications that come bundled with Windows. For anyone looking to install a clean version of Windows, meaning Windows without unnecessary applications, this is the solution you've been looking for. As you can see, we have a list of Windows applications. Check all those you don't want to be installed along with the operating system. I will check most of these applications, as many of them are unnecessary and only take up space and consume resources. If you want to remove all of them, you can do so by clicking the Select All button. Finally, you have the option to add additional scripts in the form of code that will be executed during the Windows installation. There are also specific instructions on how to do this, so anyone with the necessary knowledge and desire to make additional adjustments can add code in this segment. After checking all the desired options, at the bottom of the site you will see a button labeled Download XML file. When you click this button, the site will generate an XML file based on your settings. Now, all we need to do to apply the settings is to transfer this file to the boot USB drive we created earlier. Once we transfer the XML file to the boot USB drive, we will restart the computer and install the customized Windows 11. It is important to emphasize that doing the installation based on the settings we have made, all questions that we would otherwise have to answer will be skipped, as well as the login or creation of a Microsoft account. Of course, you can change this if you wish, but it is recommended not to do so. Instead, always create a local account on Windows and then log in with your account to Windows or just to the Windows applications you use. Additionally, during the installation, you will notice that a PowerShell will open, in which commands will be executed to customize Windows according to the settings we have made. This is a normal process and there is no reason for concern. When the installation is complete, as you can see, we have a clean version of Windows. The only applications that are installed are those that we wanted. The Start menu is in the left corner. On the desktop we have the icons we wanted. When we restart the computer, we have the option to log in into the two accounts we created, meaning we can log in as a user and as an administrator. When we click on Search, we do not receive Bing search results, we only get the results from the computer itself. Also, if we go to Windows Explorer, we can see that hidden folders are displayed, and we have file extensions shown for all files, as well as a right-click menu that is characteristic for Windows 10. Thanks to everyone who took the time to watch this video. I hope you find it useful or at least informative.